Do we know each other? This feels familiar. I can't seem to... I've forgotten it. I'm sorry.
What are you talking about?
You forgot. But not to worry. I still have the keys to your mind. Now give me my stone!
I don't have your stone, and fuck you anyway!
Recently, I did a review of Control's main campaign. The shorthand is that the game is good and worth playing if you like Remedy games or third-person shooters in general. I didn't cover the DLC content because I wanted to keep the focus on the main campaign. As much as I like it when a game gets new missions as DLC, I think a game as it comes out on release should be able to stand on its own. That said, wow. The DLCs are really good. I'm going to assume you've either played Control or at least watched my review, so I'll expect you to understand the basic terminology and concepts that I covered. I'll start with Foundation. It's a direct continuation of the game after the events of the campaign. I didn't go in depth with Control's plot in my review because I want people to play it, and I'll keep that discretion when talking about the particulars of Foundation's and AWE's plots. The best way to describe what happens in Foundation is that, just after the events of the campaign, a new threat faces the Federal Bureau of Control, and its aim is to attack the Bureau's foundation. Jesse explores the figurative roots of the Bureau and the literal roots of the oldest house, the place of power that serves as the Bureau's headquarters.
It's been 5 days since we first entered the building. Traversing the interior is dangerous due to the shifting, but we did manage to find a lower cavern that seems structurally predictable, which is a scientific way of saying its walls won't crush us in our sleep. Northmore even made a discovery. A pistol placed on a stone pedestal in front of that strange ebony pillar. Seems like something out of a storybook, except the heroes usually find swords, not handguns. But it is the perfect lure for someone like him. Hours after finding this weapon, Northmore cornered me to spout some nonsense about how the board had made him the director.
Jesse acquires 2 new skills in Foundation, but I struggle to consider them real skills as they only really work in the Foundation because they're tied to interacting with elements of the level. There are crystal structures that you can either pull out from the ground or walls, or destroy with a service weapon. They can help Jesse reach higher areas of the level, or attack the hiss by drawing them to a nearby vein, and then pulling out the crystals like a trap. I think these skills could be useful if they were applicable throughout the rest of the game, but as they're only really useful in Foundation, I don't really care about them. Formation introduces a new enemy type that focuses on melee rushdowns, teleporting away, and chucking weaponry at Jessie when she's out of reach. These guys were a nightmare for me to handle because I was too set in the groove of hovering out of enemy reach and shooting targets, but pairing these guys up with other ranged hiss really caught me off guard. I've gotten a lot better at managing them now. Foundation introduces a mechanic that I wish showed up in the main campaign, the ability to call in ranger support.
I need a ranger sent to this location stat.
Nice to see a director out in the field.
Send a ranger out. Director's orders.
Nice to see a director out in the field.
Director Faden here. Dispatch a ranger to this location.
Nice to see a director out in the field.
This is Director Faden. I require backup at this location.
The hiss are in for it now.
I need a ranger sent to this location stat.
Let's put him down.
There are intercoms spread throughout the Foundation that allow Jesse to call in a ranger to provide backup support. It's cool from a gameplay perspective because, if you think about it, it's another way that Control borrows from Dark Souls gameplay because it's the functional equivalent of summoning an AI phantom. It's also cool from a story perspective because it reinforces Jessie's role as director in that she can instruct agents to assist her.
Well, I've got a bureau to run. See you soon.
Yes, ma'am, Director Faden.
Please, Emily. Not even as a joke.
There's more time spent in the astral plane in Foundation than there is in the campaign. It makes sense for the plot, but after a while, I was getting fatigued seeing the same blank space for longer than 20 minutes. Foundation is more interesting in how it furthers the plot of the campaign by presenting another perspective on the relationship between the director of the Bureau and the board. It always seemed weird that the Bureau, an administrative agency whose goal was to mitigate, if not altogether segregate, human contact from otherworldly influence, yet an ominous, unknown presence dictated the affairs of the Bureau, not the President. Foundation shows that the relationship isn't completely docile, especially with Jessie as director.
Well, fuck you too.
I didn't explain this in my review, but one of Control's overall themes is the changing of the guard.
Trench and Darling are gone. Their knowledge, anything not written down, disappeared with them. They knew the Bureau better than anyone.
They're the Bureau's past, Emily. We won't operate like they did. We'll learn from their mistakes. We'll be better than they ever were.
The old administration is depicted as too secretive and too opaque, which is why the response to the lockdown after the Hiss attack was so piss poor. Most of the boss fights in the campaign that featured a named Hiss enemy type were actually former department heads, and their underlings would end up taking on their roles, if only to manage the current crisis. It seems like a new regime change calls for a new cabinet. By the end of the campaign, only one of the department heads that served under the former director is still around, and she's just as secretive as the rest of her colleagues. Foundation is just as much her story as it is Jessie's, and it's cool to see the relationship between her and Jessie unfold, if only indirectly.
Nothing a little C4 can't fix. 2 birds, 1 bomb. Christ, what a mess.
Overall, Foundation is a great follow-up to the campaign. It brings up points that seem to be glossed over in the campaign in a way that feels natural.
Someone call a plumber.
Glad no one was around to hear that.
As much as I enjoyed Foundation's plot, I really wanted to blitz through it to get to AWE. From what I had heard, bits and pieces about the DLC, it was supposed to have close ties with another Remedy game, Alan Wake.
Alan, wake up!
Here's where I have to warn you that I'll be talking spoilers about the AWE DLC as well as Alan Wake. If you haven't played either, I'd suggest doing so before going forward. So how is AWE? It's amazing. I've never been so hyped after playing a DLC campaign as I did playing AWE. It hasn't been easy for Alan Wake, both in his game and out of his game. He's been trapped in the cliffhanger for a decade, and plans for a sequel never went through. In 2012, Alan Wake's American Nightmare slaked the thirst for more Alan Wake. In 2015, Polygon featured a video where they played 13 minutes of a scrapped Alan Wake 2 demo. After that, it's been a drought for 5 years. Alan Wake 2 was never going to happen. Before we go any further with the connection between Alan Wake and Control, I need to talk about Grant Morrison. There's this anecdote I've heard about Scottish comics writer Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison dabbled in chaos magic. While he was writing The Invisibles, he wrote one of the characters to resemble himself, in the hopes that people would like him more if the character looked like him. During the run, he suffered an injury and was bedridden in a similar fashion as his not-self insert in The Invisibles. He also went through a breakup at the time, and decided that he wanted a girlfriend that was similar to his not-self insert's love interest in The Invisibles. And according to Morrison himself, this happened again and again, with several women exhibiting different facets of that character. So after experiencing that, he placed a chaos sigil in one of the pages of The Invisibles, and encouraged readers to focus on that sigil to promote the sales of the book. You're probably asking, what does all of this have to do with Alan Wake and Control? I feel like AWE is Sam Lake's attempt at placing a chaos sigil in Control and using it to will Alan Wake 2 into existence.
Wake had to escape. Right. His escape. He was already out. He wanted to make it true. Wake needed a hero.
Alan Wake's core theme is about the fluid and recursive relationship between fiction and reality. Form an idea, focus on it, and make it real. Bright Falls seems to be a lightning rod for creative types, and their ideas seem to bleed over into the real world. The big reveal in Alan Wake is that Alan himself may be the product of such a process, and his whole purpose was to serve as an agent to combat the unknown force that preys on humanity. An agent that struggles against an inhuman threat to humanity. Where have I heard that before? It seems apt that AWE is set in the abandoned investigation sector of the Bureau. Jessie's trying to figure out why she hears the voice of missing writer Alan Wake through the hotline, the object of power that allows Jessie to communicate with the former director and other beings who live on another plane of existence. The DLC fleshes out some more of the Bureau's checkered history without giving away the overall mystery of the place. You see this the most with the internal investigation reports about certain agents. But what's more interesting is why this sector was abandoned. Something's here, and it's been here in the darkness for a very long time, and it's changing. What's cool about AWE is that it introduces a threat that's new to the setting but very familiar to Alan Wake fans. The Dark Presence, or as the Bureau have designated it, the Shadow. Because the investigation sector has been abandoned for so long, a lot of the facilities have been neglected and kept in the dark. This darkness has become a palpable mass, like a tar that gums up machinery or blocks off passageways. The only way to remove these masses is to shine a light on them. But unlike a certain writer, Jessie doesn't carry a flashlight with her wherever she goes. There are work lights scattered about the sector that Jessie can carry with her launch ability and aim at these shadow masses. This mechanic is so nostalgic in a way that I couldn't have expected it to be. When you carry a work light around and stroll through the dark areas, you can hear the same or at least similar whispering noise from Alan Wake when you were running for your life in the middle of the Washington wilderness.
This darkness light burns it away, huh? Makes sense.
The shadow masses even explode in the same eruption of light as objects tainted by the Dark Presence in Alan Wake. Luckily, Control doesn't lean too hard into Alan Wake's mechanics. They could have gone the route and brought back the Taken, people who've been corrupted by the Dark Presence, or even had objects attack Jessie until she hits them with some light. But they showed a lot of restraint, and I appreciate that. Even though AWE is about the events after Alan Wake, he isn't taking the spotlight away from Jessie, so to speak. He's not overshadowing her in her own game. Most of the challenge in this DLC is fighting off the darkness. Unlike other parts of the Bureau, being in the dark in specific areas of the sector will drain Jessie's energy and prevent her from using her skills. You have to search for power cores, which are large batteries, and place them on power nodes to light the place up and keep the thing from being complacent. I like the final boss fight in AWE more than Foundation, because it's a unique boss instead of a standard enemy type with unique attack cycles. Also, it's a larger target, so I don't have to worry about precision for the most part during the heat of combat. This fight tests you with how quickly you can attach power cores to power nodes to keep the lights on before the Thing can fully recover. You'll need to manage the Thing's attacks, the extra stress on meter management that darkness introduces, and the various adds that come in to support the Thing. AWE introduces a new weapon form that is very handy, and I've kept it on now for most of my post-game adventures. It fires sticky explosives that you can detonate after pressing primary fire again. If you hold secondary fire and go into precision aiming, you can fire up to 3 charges before detonating. In my opinion, it's a lot safer than the grenade launcher form because you can determine when to detonate the charges instead of hoping that you aren't in the blast radius when you launch a regular grenade. It's also handy because you can carry it throughout the rest of the house instead of being restricted to only using it in investigations. That's as far as I'll go with the DLCs. They're both great and worth playing once you beat the campaign. Surprisingly, they're both full of side missions, which is something I didn't expect. There are altered items that provide a detour from the main thrust of each respective campaign, and notes and audio that add more depth to the setting without over-explaining itself.
Okay, we're gonna try this one more time and then we're done playing with you. Understand?
Jelly.
Where are you from?
Jumbo Green. Up and loose and heavy treat sandwich.
Jesus Christ, does anyone have any idea what this thing is saying?
Hotly. Dirt arrange you.
Why are you here? What the hell do you want? Why'd you stow away on that ship?
School bearing boy. Eyes many cauterizing loops through and about. Wind and Windy Mitchell.
Did he just say Mitchell? Is there a Mitchell at NASA?
Tubes.
You know what? Never mind. I can't do this anymore. Just send this thing to the guys in research. Let them cut it up or whatever they do. You hear that? They're gonna cut you up, you pain in the ass.
Spider time!
It's really impressive how well Remedy pulls that off consistently in Control. I had to put aside some missions to finish off the main campaign, as I thought it would break the flow of the story and make the game feel too much like Arkham City with its pacing. But now that I finished all of the campaigns in DLC, I went back to do some cleanup. I'm really impressed with how much thought and care was put into each side mission. It'd be easy to make them all based on Radiant quests, but each mission is unique and varies in terms of difficulty and challenge. It reminds me of The Witcher 3 in that sense, where quests turn out to be far more intricate and involved than I initially expected. One mission tasks Jesse with hunting down altered items that have run amok during the Hiss attack. These items can have their own missions, or they can end up cameoing in a mission focused on another altered item. It makes the world seem more interconnected to see these objects interact and clash with each other, and with the Bureau, and not exist in the vacuum of their own missions. The challenges can also add some character to what would otherwise be inanimate objects.
Finally, no more quacking.
Some items feel like they're mischievous, and some items feel downright hostile. I really have to give it to Remedy with the amount of restraint they had put on altered items. This could have been a way to shove down as many references to their past games as possible, but they made sure to pull the reins over certain items to make sure that they didn't allow fan service to derail the tone of the game.
That thing is a person?
He was a person. We brought him here to study after he was, altered in an AWE. I forget the medical word for what happened, but now light physically hurts him. Do you have a flashlight?
No.
A lantern? Headlamp? Oh yeah, flare gun. Oh, Christmas lights. You could wrap them around your...
I don't have any of those, Langston.
Another thing I really like about the postgame is how everyone treats Jessie now that she's fully taken on her role as director. Although there's never any overt comments on the fact that she's a woman and there's no one in the Bureau that straight up hands Jessie a bigot sandwich, there is an implicit acknowledgement about how male and female symbols have affected cultures throughout time, and these symbols are reduced to images of triangles. Control never breaks the flow of the narrative to inform the player that Jessie is a strong female character. It just shows that she is, through her actions and how the people around her respond to those actions. There are a lot of women in the Bureau, who stand out not because they're women, but because they're experts in their respective fields, and that's why they command respect. And it's cool to see how they in turn show respect, or lack thereof, to Jesse.
With Darling gone, I'm putting Emily Pope in charge of the research sector. Are you okay with that?
Perfectly. You have pulled Excalibur from the stone, and now decree as you see fit, O Queen. What a true meritocracy we live in.
Glad to hear it.
Even characters who come off oafish during the main campaign end up endearing by postgame, if only for a little bit.
I found all those missing altered items.
All of them? Wow, you have a gift, ma'am. But those weren't all of the altered items missing from the Panopticon. The hiss must be making them restless. We've had several more containment breaches.
How many of these things did he lose? How many?
Just a couple. Should be no problem for you. I really appreciate your help. Really. Just super.
I love this dude because he's the epitome of failing upwards, and even he admits that Jesse's administration feels a lot less oppressive than the previous director. There's so much to love about Control. It's a great action game, it's a celebration of Remedy's past works, and it's one of the best examples of a compelling female lead in a video game. Also, this card puzzle in Foundation is a hell of a lot better than the card puzzle in the campaign. I can't say it enough to please play Control, but don't play AWE before playing Alan Wake and American Nightmare first.
I've forgotten again. I had a plan. I know it. I forgot.
Bring all the boys to the yard in daylight. It's better than yours. Damn right. It's better than yours. I can teach you, but I have to shine.
Whatever is going on with Wake, he clearly needs some help.